Hi everyone, this is Emily from Local Tasting Tours. We're very excited for our podcast today at Jane's Next Door on Gottingen Street, and I'm here with the owner, Jane Wright. It's a busy morning for you, Jane.
Yes, Emily, we've got a number of catering orders going out this morning. One was actually going to the waterfront to get on a boat today, and we're busy making sandwiches and picnic items for our takeaway store.
I wanted to ask you about your picnic baskets because I think it's such a great idea. We often have guests on our tours who want to spend an afternoon in Point Pleasant, and I always think of your picnic baskets as being such a great option, and they are the real baskets, right?
Yes, with a couple of linen napkins. We've added a number of things this year. We have a really large size lobster roll and some buttermilk fried chicken with some really tasty blue cheese dip, but many salads and sweets too. So I think there's a nice selection every day for people to put together a pretty terrific picnic.
And so many foodies in town know you from Jane's on the Common, but you've been here on Gottingen for a couple of years.
I had a great run, Emily. I had a lot of fun for 10 years. Jane's on the Common, the restaurant was a surprising success to me, and I had a lot of fun at it. I like to think I'm just like Madonna. I need to reinvent myself every once in a while. So I was very excited to be able to pass the torch along to my daughter, Jenna, who's opened Edna, who I like to refer to as my granddaughter. I ask everyone if they've met my granddaughter, Edna. Lots of things played into the decision about Jane's, but we're pretty excited to be here.
And whenever I come into Jane's Next Door to pick up those wonderful chocolate shortbreads that we offer on our tours from your kitchen, I notice people in the neighborhood, coming in for their morning coffee.
From the moment we opened here on Gottingen Street, there's been more walk-by traffic. More people seem to be living and walking in this neighborhood, coming in the morning on their walk downtown, getting a good coffee and a muffin, or sometimes they're picking up their sandwiches for lunch at the same time. And I've just been shocked at the number of people that actually work in this neighborhood as well. It's other small businesses, and it's everybody.
Our special guest today is Samantha King from One Block Barbershop, right across the street, and also known as OBB. Samantha, we're so happy to have you here today, and happy to tell people about how One Block really stands out. There's really nothing quite like it. Can you tell us a little more about it?
We opened the shop with the vision of having an alternate space aside from mainstream salons here in Halifax. And we also wanted to have something that was a little more community-oriented, and it was still affordable for the community that we're set in. We offer looks that sometimes can be different than what other salons offer. That's something that we feel our guests really value about our services.
You have a wonderful photography gallery on your website, and there's so many interesting looks. And there's something there that says you really want to take the time with your customers.
We like to focus on quality. That's one of our main goals. And we also focus a lot on education in salon as well to make sure that we're giving the best services possible to every person who walks through our door.
And I notice that you're a queer positive space, and I feel like this is a very inclusive community in this kind of near north area.
Yes, it is. We really encourage the queer positive attitude at our shop. We know that the North End is a really queer positive neighborhood to be in, and we really enjoy being a part of that. We've hosted events in the past for the queer community.
I love how your stylists are represented on your website. They all have such full profiles saying, what their interests are, and what's a little bit about your story, Sam?
I started in this industry about 5 years ago as a receptionist. I was bit by the styling bug and have loved being in the industry ever since, and I'm really passionate about Aveda, which is the brand that we carry. It's been a whirlwind of really positive experiences being involved with Aveda and being involved with One Block. I feel really passionate about what I do, and I really enjoy the connection that I make with every guest that I have.
Jane, I understand you have a story about meeting the owner, Michael, of One Block Barbershop at a previous time.
Yes, a few years ago, before either Michael or I had businesses on the street. I'm a big fan of the Sex Festival. It was a series of plays and performances every year at the Plutonium Playhouse. I went one year to an event called the Strip Spelling Bee, and Michael was a participant in that. And let's just say he's not the best speller, so I actually got to see quite a bit of him the first time I met him.
I absolutely love that story. And Samantha, you didn't know about this?
I've never heard this story, and I'm really glad that we were able to shed some new light on, on Michael for me.
So, Jane, you have a gorgeous looking tasting. Can you describe what's there?
This is a lobster profiterole. It's just a little French pastry that inside it's a gougere, I guess, and it's filled with pieces of lobster. It's the same lobster mix we use in our lobster roll in the store. We bring the lobster in live and cook it and crack it, and it's worth it to buy it fresh. And these are some very popular items these days. It's like a Vietnamese fresh salad roll. We make them with crisp vegetables, some with some vegetables and chicken, some with shrimp, some with some duck sometimes. And there's usually a dipping sauce. You know, I don't think there's a calorie in it. And the other nice thing about them, that they're wrapped in the rice paper, so they're gluten-free.
And so beautiful to look at. Are you a fan of lobster?
Love lobster so much. East Coast raised, so yes, I've had a lot of lobster in my life, and I can't get enough.
I remember those family gatherings at the picnic table and a big pot of butter in the middle and everyone kind of digging in. Yeah. Did you have some of those?
I actually, Emily, grew up on a farm in Ontario in the middle of nowhere. My parents pretty well raised and grew everything we ate, all our meat, eggs. They made their own butter every day. So as a child, I ate a lot of organ meats, and it's interesting to see this resurgence coming back to this sort of snout to tail.
And right across the street here, Field Guide?
Yes, to see those young folks, yes. So anyways, I had some really interesting food experiences growing up. Unfortunately, they rarely involved lobster, so maybe that's why I've chosen to make the East Coast my home for the last 30 years.
This fresh salad roll, the fresh veggies, I love that they're not like they're julienne kind of, so you get a bit of a crunch, but I love the little bit of a bite that I got, and I'm not sure if it was from the sauce.
Yeah, it's a chili dipping sauce.
And Sam, you just had a lobster profiterole. How was it?
Delicious, as I expected.
It's such a gorgeous plate as well. I mean, there's a sophistication to what you do, but there's also kind of a homegrown feel. I remember I went into your shop once and you said, "Here, I just finished making my lemonade. It's from this Harrowsmith recipe from years ago, you know?" And you must find you kind of connect to people that way.
I think so. I mean, I think people love to have conversations about food. And I do like to, you know, I've always, even doing the menus at Jane's on the Common, like to be presenting balanced food that doesn't have too much salt, you know, that all the ingredients are just real. We made everything from scratch.
So we usually ask a couple of questions on our podcast. Do you have a fond childhood food memory? Sam?
Growing up, we didn't have peanut butter in the house because my mom has a strong distaste for peanut butter, the smell, the texture, the taste, everything. But I came home and I had a bad day of any kind. The first thing she would do would go out to the store, get a small jar of peanut butter and make me peanut butter on toast because she knew that it was a special treat and she knew how much I loved peanut butter. Yeah, to this day, my comfort food is peanut butter on toast.
That's very sweet. She was very in tune with what you needed. Jane, do you have any memories?
My parents were always telling me as a child that the first sentence I ever strung together, like at the time I knew a few words, but the first sentence I actually ever came out of my mouth was, "Let's top and eat." Let's stop and eat. They'd be driving in the car and I'd want to stop at a restaurant. As I mentioned, growing up on this farm in the middle of nowhere, I felt very, very deprived as a child. My mother had no sugar in the house or anything. And as I say, you know, nobody ever wanted to trade lunches with me because I'd have things like tongue sandwiches in my lunches. About once a year, my mother would come home. She was a high school teacher and she'd come home from the city after work with Kentucky Fried Chicken. And I just think as a kid. I can't ever remember being so excited about food in my whole life.
We had in the tiny, tiny town that I grew up in, we had this, it was called the K&B Takeout. And I think there were maybe like one other place to eat in the town, and they did fried chicken. If there was a big enough family gathering, we might get it. And it was just like this treat, you know. I also like to ask our guests if they have a favorite locally owned or independently run business in the province, not just Halifax.
I really like the Cocoon Boutique down the street here on Gottingen. I really enjoy the body positive message that they send by carrying a variety of sizes. I know that a lot of alternative wear, especially in the North End, can carry select sizes and things, but I like that Cocoon doesn't limit in any way. I like that they have an alternative option for women, and I like that they support roller derby. I think that's a really positive thing that they do.
They're a very eye-catching shop from the outside, I notice. Jane, do you have a favorite local business?
One of my favorite buying local stories, Emily, has to do with Peak Audio on Agricola Street. It was just interesting. I, a few years ago, had the fortunate circumstance to renovate a kitchen, and I put in wiring for a flat screen TV. And I was all excited the time came to go buy this TV, and I'd never had a flat screen TV. And my guy Norm, who really likes to get a deal, says, well, come on, let's go to Bears Lake. And I said, no, Norm, we're not going to Bears Lake, we're going to Peak Audio. And he says, well, Peak Audio will be too expensive. And I said, it doesn't matter, we're going to Peak Audio. Anyways, it was one of those weird coincidental things. We walked into Peak Audio, and there on their staff table, which is just to the left of the door, you walk in, were 3 or 4 Jane's Next Door sandwiches with the labels. And I elbowed Norm, and I said, now, do you see why we're buying the TV at Peak Audio? And it might have been a little more expensive, but when I first opened the restaurant, I got all the speakers for the sound system from Peak Audio. And anytime I ever had a problem with any of it, they would be right there. They would give me a loaner machine. The service from a locally owned business like that, I mean, Peak Audio is, really good at what they do.
Well, listen, thank you both so much for taking part in the podcast today. It was a delicious tasting, and it was so great to meet you, Sam, from One Block. Can you tell us how people might get in touch if they'd like to check you out or make an appointment?
You can go to our website, oneblock.ca. We have all of our contact information listed on there. You can contact through email. We get back to you same day, and you can always give us a call as well. We'll be sure to fit you in.
Jane, what are your hours at Jane's Next Door?
We're open 7 days a week now, Emily. Monday to Saturday we open at 8 o'clock in the morning, and on Sundays we're open from 10 until 3. Or you can check out our website, janesonthecommon.com.
Really enjoyed the tasting today and speaking with you both. Don't forget to check out our brand new tour, the Open Kitchen Tour, which will be running every Saturday, featuring a behind the scenes look at various restaurants in the Hydrostone District and North End. This is Emily from Local Tasting Tours. Take a tour, take a bite out of Halifax.
It's wonderful, it's wonderful, it's wonderful, just like my baby, it's wonderful, it's wonderful, it's wonderful. I dream of you, chips, 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 da-dee-doo-dee-doo, chi-boom, chi-boom, da-dee-doo-dee-doo, chi-boom, chi-boom.